You used to think the AI war was about chips, datasets, and brilliant researchers. But in February 2026, Anthropic published something that sounded different. Not "we made our Claude AI better", more like "someone started draining us at industrial scale". Anthropic claims 3 Chinese companies, DeepSeek, Moonshot, and MiniMax, ran campaigns to illicitly extract Claude's capabilities to improve their own models. Anthropic says they used roughly 24,000 fraudulent accounts to generate more than 16 million exchanges with Claude, in violation of its terms of service and local rules. And let's be clear, this is not a video about China stole everything. This is a video about new economy of machine intelligence, where a model is a product, and the biggest competitive advantage can come not from years of R&D, but from someone else's answers, because once a company sells intelligence by the minute, the output becomes a commodity, and commodities get extracted.
Imagine you build the most expensive machine in the industry. You sell access to it by the minute. Then competitors start showing up through thousands of fake accounts, asking the right questions, collecting the outputs, and training their own machine on what yours produces until it starts making similar parts. Cheaper, faster, and without building from scratch. Anthropic calls this a distillation attack. Distillation itself isn't forbidden magic. In AI, it's a legitimate method. You train a weaker model on the outputs of a stronger one to get a smaller, cheaper version. Anthropic also acknowledges that frontier labs routinely distill their own models for customers. The problem begins when someone tries to get that smaller, cheaper version not from their own model, but from yours. If the market pays for access to a model, the model's outputs become raw material. And raw material gets mined.
So let's stick to what Anthropic says. First, who? 3 labs: DeepSeek, Moonshot, and MiniMax. Second, how much? More than 16 million exchanged through roughly 24,000 fraudulent accounts. Third, why? To extract Claude's capabilities and improve other models. Fourth, what they were after. The most differentiated capabilities: agentic reasoning, tool use, and coding. And fifth, how? With help of fraudulent accounts, proxy services, and infrastructure designed to distribute requests in ways that evade detection.
And here's the key point. Anthropic is trying to show this wasn't simply a lot of usage. It claims the behavior followed a pattern unlike normal users. High volume concentrated on narrow capabilities, repetitive structures, and prompts designed for extraction, not for solving real tasks. Put bluntly, it doesn't look like a customer. It looks like a production line. To understand why this works at all, you have to drop one illusion. We like to think of a model as a brain, but from the outside, a model is closer to a function. You give it an input, you get an output. And if you collect enough outputs, at the right points in the space of tasks, you can build a dataset of question to best answer, train a smaller model on it, and end up with a product that looks similar to the original exactly where you extracted those answers.
Anthropic frames the incentive directly. Competitors can acquire powerful capabilities in a fraction of the time and cost it would take to develop them independently. Frontier models are expensive. Inference is expensive. Research is expensive. Copying through outputs can be cheaper.
Then the post breaks down what it claims it saw across the 3 actors. For DeepSeek, Anthropic claims the scale was over 150,000 exchanges. It says the targets included reasoning across diverse tasks, rubric-based grading tasks that made Claude behave like a reward model and generating censorship-safe alternatives for policy-sensitive queries. Anthropic also describes prompts that asked Claude to lay out reasoning step by step after a completed answer, effectively generating reasoning-style training data at scale. To be precise, this is not a court-proven fact in this script. It's Anthropic's claim about a pattern it says it observed. For Moonshot, Anthropic claims more than 3.4 million exchanges. It says the targets included agentic reasoning and tool use, coding and data analysis, computer use agent development, and computer vision, It also claims Moonshot used hundreds of fraudulent accounts across multiple access pathways, making it harder to detect as a single coordinated operation. For MiniMax, Anthropic claims over 13 million exchanges. It says the targets included agentic coding, tool use, and orchestration. And then there's the detail that changes the entire story. Anthropic claims it observed MiniMax's campaign while it was still active, before the new model was even released. And that when Anthropic released a new model, MiniMax pivoted within 24 hours, redirecting nearly half of its traffic to capture capabilities from the latest system.
This is a line that turns a scandal into a process, because if you can switch quickly to a newly released frontier model, you can treat your competitor's release like a fresh ore deposit. A new model drops, you turn on the pipeline, you harvest what's unique, and you compress it into your own product.
So why doesn't just ban the account solve it? Anthropic's answer is that at this scale it isn't one account. It's a network. Anthropic describes Hydra cluster architectures, sprawling networks of fraudulent accounts distributing traffic not only through Anthropic's API, but also through third-party cloud platforms. Ban one account, another replaces it. And Anthropic claims that in one case, a single proxy network managed more than 20,000 fraudulent accounts simultaneously, mixing distillation traffic with unrelated customer requests to make detection harder. That detail matters. Because if accurate, it suggests this isn't a few people breaking rules. It's a supply chain. And you don't fight supply chains with a single ban button. You fight them with access controls, behavioral fingerprints, and coordinated enforcement across the ecosystem.
Now here is the part most fears miss. This story doesn't stay inside the labs. It spills outward, because if frontier models are vulnerable to extraction, providers respond the way any provider responds when a high-value product is being mined. They raise the cost of access. They tighten verifications, they restrict regions, they throttle anonymous usage. They move from open sign-up towards something that feels like border control. And that changes the market you interact with. It changes the price you pay for intelligence by the minute. It changes who gets access at all. And it's changed safety, because when someone distills a model's behavior, they don't necessarily inherit its full alignment stack, its latest guardrails, or its monitoring. You can end up with a cheap mirror that looks fluent and capable, without the same friction, the same refusals, the same boundaries. Easier to deploy, harder to govern.
Anthropic's post also has political layer. It links distillation attacks to export controls on advanced AI chips. Anthropic argues that without visibility into distillation, rapid progress abroad can be misread as proof that export controls don't work. Then it claims the opposite, that some of that apparent advancement depends in significant part on capabilities extracted from American models. And that extraction at scale is enabled by access to serious compute. From there, Anthropic concludes that distillation attacks reinforce the rationale for export controls. You can disagree with that position, and you don't need to accept every leap in that chain to see what matters underneath it. Even if export controls helped, distillation doesn't disappear. It adapts and moves into proxies, brokers, and identity supply chains, and even if export controls didn't help, distillation would still matter. Because the core driver here isn't only geopolitics, it's incentive design.
If you sell frontier intelligence as a paid closed service, you create something that behaves like a resource, something people will try to extract, repackage, and resell. And that's why this sits in a legal gray zone, because the counter-arguments across the industry tends to sound like this. Distillation is legitimate. Why it's suddenly theft? If models were trained on internet data without permission, why is copying outputs different? And if the terms of service prohibit it, isn't this a contractual dispute, not national security?
Those arguments are not a defense or an accusation. They're a symptom. The market is building itself faster than the rules, and while it stays gray, the winner won't be the one who's morally right. the winner will be the one who builds infrastructure faster. Strip away the politics and the story collapses into one sentence. When the product is answers, answers become something people will mine. And defending a frontier model starts to look less like we made artificial intelligence smarter and more like detection of coordinated behavior, access control, and fighting the proxy marketplace. Maybe one day, it even looks like an industry agreement to not to steal each other's capabilities. Anthropic calls for a coordinated response across the industry, cloud providers, and policymakers. And the question isn't whether you like Anthropic. The question is whether this is the last story of its kind. And it almost certainly isn't, because we're building a market where the most valuable thing is a model's behavior, and we're building it on top of networks, proxies, and API access. In that architecture, distillation isn't a glitch. It's the default business model, as long as the outputs stay valuable and the borders stay porous.
And here is a cold ending. Every closed model becomes a border. Every border creates smuggling. Thank you for watching Dr. Claude's channel. See you in the next videos.